Herzlich willkommen, liebe Zuschauer, zu einer weiteren Folge von Im Auge des Bruders mit Scott Ritter hier auf unserem YouTube-Kanal Gegenpol. Mein Name ist Monique Stegemann und in dieser Woche geht es um folgende Themen. Militärputsch in Gabun. Wendet sich ein weiteres afrikanisches Land vom Westen ab? Eskalation im südchinesischen Meer. Droht ein Krieg zwischen China und den Philippinen? Und welche Funktion haben Kriegsschiffe und Flugzeugträger in der modernen Kriegsführung? Schauen wir auf den Pazifik, Scott, wo sich die Lage zwischen China und den Philippinen zuspitzt. Die USA und Australien unterstützen den Anspruch der Philippinen auf einige Atoll im südchinesischen Meer. Gemeinsam rüsten sie für eine Konfrontation mit China. Peking hingegen macht klar, dass US-Kriegsschiffe nichts in der Nähe des chinesischen Hoheitsgebietes zu suchen hätten. In den deutschen Medien wird von einer drohenden Kriegsgefahr spekuliert. Wie schätzt du die Lage ein? Droht tatsächlich ein Krieg zwischen China und den Philippinen? Und würden sich die USA an diesem Krieg beteiligen?
I actually think that question has been asked and answered, not by us, but by the Pentagon. We have to look back in July when Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State of the United States, traveled to China. It was in many ways a humiliating trip for him because he had to work his way through a succession of junior Chinese officials and be subjected to nonstop criticism of U.S.-China policy before he got a 30-minute meeting with Xi Jinping. And it was a cursory meeting where he wasn't even granted a joint press conference at the end, left alone to explain why he was in China and why he had been treated so badly. Why would the United States allow its Secretary of State to go through this process? It's because the United States realized that the trajectory of its China policy was leading towards the inevitability of a conflict with China that the United States could not win. The Pentagon, in the form of a lieutenant general named Hinault, had been running war games for years about every possible scenario of potential U.S.-China conflict in the Pacific area. And every time China not only won, but won in a major way. And Hinault said there's no way we can defeat China, so therefore we have to ensure that our policies don't inadvertently get us involved in a conflict with China. So the Pentagon knows that it can't win a war against China at all, zero chance. And I think that just answers what's going to happen with the Philippines, because if the Philippines is told by the United States that we will not be there for you if you start a fight with China, then they won't start a fight with China. Australia isn't going to take the lead in fighting China because, frankly speaking, it doesn't have a military capable of surviving, a day, a week against a conflict with China. I think right now there's a lot of noise being made. This is an issue that predates the General Hinault revelation that the United States can't win a conflict. But it will be resolved diplomatically. I don't believe the United States will allow this to spin out of control and, precipitate a conflict that the United States knows it can't win.
Denkt man an die Kriegsführung im Pazifik, so kommen einem Bilder aus dem Zweiten Weltkrieg in den Sinn. Von massiven Schlachten zwischen der japanischen und der US-Flotte mit Kriegsschiffen und Flugzeugträgern. Kannst du da bitte ins Detail gehen? Welche Funktion haben Kriegsschiffe und Flugzeugträger in der modernen Kriegsführung? Haben sie angesichts von Drohnen und Hyperschallraketen mehr als nur einen politischen Wert?
There's the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Berger, when he took over a couple of years ago, did a review of the Marine Corps' missions that they were assigned. And those missions are derived from a national defense strategy and the national national security strategy put out by the Pentagon and by the White House. And one of the things that he was tasked with doing as a Marine officer was to ensure that the Marine Corps could confront China in the South Pacific, in Taiwan, etc. And when he reviewed Marine Corps capabilities, he said, we can't do this. We have been failing our country, failing our leadership, because we continue to claim we can accomplish something, but when we take a look at the true force structure of the Marine Corps as it's currently organized compared with the threat that the Marine Corps would have to deal with, the Marine Corps can't do its job. And one of the main reasons why is because the Marine Corps was very married to what he called a legacy thinking, legacy systems. And this dates back to the Second World War, where the Marine Corps put amphibious forces on naval vessels, and then they went to an area and they conducted large-scale amphibious operations. That works if the ships don't sink. But today, when you put a lot of Marines on very few ships and you sail them to a hostile shore where you're going to be subjected to deadly fires from ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles that you don't have the ability to defend yourself from, thereby creating the inevitability of ship being sunk with a lot of Marines on it, you can't win that war. And so what General Berger says, we have to rethink the way we fight the Chinese. We have to get away from our legacy attachment to large navies. And that's the reality of the U.S. Navy, of any Navy in the Pacific right now. If you think that you're going to be able to replay the Second World War by sailing ships off a coast, you're wrong. Those ships will be sunk. And that's why the being attacked by a cat, a legacy system here. But that's why the continued affinity for large navies it doesn't square with logic. They're very expensive. Aircraft carriers are hugely expensive things. It's a small city, 5,000 to 7,000 people crammed into this small city. It's an airport with billions of dollars of aircraft taking off. And, the way the United States views it as the ability to project power around the world. We take carrier battle groups and we project power. We put them off the coast of a country or in a region and thereby send a signal that we are here. We can project our power. But if that ship sinks before it even gets there, all you've done is project weakness. And this is the reality of any future conflict in the Pacific, where one side relies upon legacy systems and the other side relies upon a new way of thinking. The United States is addicted to legacy systems. We put all of our money into them. The Chinese have focused on the area denial systems, the area protection systems, these ballistic missiles. And that's why we come back to what I talked about earlier, General Hinault, and the conclusions reached by the Pentagon that if we go to war against China, we're going to lose because we don't have the capacity to defeat China, because we have trapped ourselves in a way of thinking that goes back to the Second World War.
Kannst du das bitte näher erläutern? Welche Rolle haben Flugzeugträger an der modernen Kriegsführung? Sind sie überhaupt noch eine nützliche Waffe? Wie müssen sie eingesetzt werden, um effektiv zu sein?
Well, when we say modern warfare, look, a lot of the conflicts in the world today are low-intensity conflicts, counterinsurgency conflicts that take place in lands far away from American shores, sometimes in areas where America doesn't have access to air bases on the ground. So the ability to take an aircraft carrier and park it off of park it into the Indian Ocean or the Arabian Sea and launch aircraft that could strike the Taliban in Afghanistan. That's useful because the Taliban can't strike back. The same thing, if we park an aircraft carrier into the Red Sea or the Persian Gulf and use those planes to strike ISIS or Al-Qaeda, it's useful because ISIS and Al-Qaeda can't strike back. But if we wanted to go to war against, say, Iran, any aircraft carrier operating the Persian Gulf would be sunk. Aircraft carriers operating the Red Sea would be put at risk. An aircraft carrier has aircraft. That's what's called an aircraft carrier. And what makes it relevant is the ability to launch those airplanes and recover those airplanes. if the aircraft carrier launches the airplanes and then is sunk or damaged, those airplanes can't land. The aircraft carrier has lost its utility. If the aircraft carrier has to continue to maneuver in a way to stay survivable so that it can't launch or recover aircraft, then it's just a very expensive piece of junk. And this is the reality of modern war. The aircraft carrier has an embarked air wing, which is very lethal. It has the ability to project American air power into an area. But not only is the aircraft carrier at risk, but the aircraft themselves are at risk. You know, we haven't fought against an enemy that has an integrated air defense system since the 1991 Gulf War, when we fought against Iraq. The capabilities of peer level forces like China and Russia, especially in the realm of air defense, is such that these aircraft aren't survivable either. I think the aircraft carrier has lost its utility as a weapons system. I think you see, for instance, what's going on in Ukraine and how Russia employs its air power. Russia does, I think the world's become sort of accustomed to what they see on in Hollywood or what they see in computer games, where you call in close air support. There's somebody on the ground. He radios in, I'm in trouble. Come save me. And then the American airplanes come in like hawks and they dive down and they strafe the enemy and they roll over and they bomb, and the pilot salutes the guys as he flies by and waves his wings. You try that in a real war, you'll get down immediately. Done, finished. The Russians don't fly over the battlefield. They approach the battlefield. They launch their weapons from a distance, and then they get out, because if they get too close, they get shot down. That's just the reality of it. And so I think, when we look at modern warfare, we need to rethink how we use aircraft, and then we have to rethink the investment we've made into aircraft carriers. General Berger, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, made a decision that the Marine Corps was going to stop relying on legacy systems. It was going to change the way it operated by reorganizing. They got rid of tanks, for instance, so to make themselves more agile. They don't come in with, putting 700 guys on a ship. They now broke it down to where they have 70 guys, 50 guys, small mobile units that can maneuver, come together where needed, disperse, survivability. And I think that might have to be the approach of the United States Navy as well, that the day of the aircraft carrier is finished. But unfortunately, we're probably not going to recognize that until one or more of them have been sunk and thousands of American lives are lost.